Hello all of you. In this session, we'll talk about Active Directory Domain Services in Windows Server 2022. So let's start the session, guys. So we'll talk about Active Directory Domain Services. The short form of the services name is ADDS. The short form is ADDS and the full form is Active Directory Domain Services. Now, the concept is that you need to understand the two things in that. Number one, what is ADDS? Number one, and why we use ADDS. So we need to understand two things. Number one, what is ADDS, and why we need ADDS on Windows Server 2022. Okay, so we'll start with the first, what is ADDS? Okay, so if we talk about the ADDS, so ADDS is a services. It's a Active Directory Domain Services. It's a kind of a services which is available in servers. Not only in 2022 server, in the previous servers also. Like you found this services, you can say that starts from 2000 onwards. Windows Server 2000. In 2000, the name of the services is ADS. So if we talk about in 2000, so in Windows 2000 server, so the service name is ADS, Active Directory Services. In 2003 also the same name continues, ADS, but once 2008 comes, so it changes the name. So you can say that in Windows 2008 server onwards, AD services name is changed and now it's called ADDS, Active Directory Domain Services. So 2008 onwards, as you can say that the name remains same. So 2008, 12, 16, 19 and 2022. All these servers has same name. The service name is Active Directory Domain Services. Now before we understand what is Active Directory Domain Services, so as I already told you that it's a services which is available in Windows servers. Now before we start learn more on this particular services, we need to understand that if we'll talk about the Microsoft OS, whether you can talk about the client OS or whether you talked about the server OS. If you talk about the Microsoft OS, in that we have two types of network. One is workgroup network, and number second we have domain network. So once you install any OS, whether it's a client OS or a server OS, it's related to the Microsoft, like you can install Windows 10 or Windows 11, Microsoft Windows 11, or you can install Microsoft Server 2022. All those servers or client operating systems are work by default in workgroup network. So these are the two networks we have. By default, all the OS, whatever client or server OS you have, I talk about the Microsoft only. Microsoft servers and client OS, which is automatically running in workgroup network. Somehow we also call this known as a local network or LAN network. We also known as this network also known as a local network. Okay. So by default the network name is workgroup network. Now what happens in the workgroup? Workgroup is a simple basic network. You can say that it's a you can say that it's a local type of network. Okay, in that we do not need any particular server for that. Like imagine if I have a network, like imagine I have a switch over there. This is my switch, and we have a devices like this. So we don't need a particular server in the workgroup network. It's a simple basic network where we can share our resources. Like imagine that this is my switch, and we have a devices, like we have a client 01. I installed client 01 over there. We have a client 01, client 02, and then we have a client 03, and then we have a client 04. We have 4 clients. Now imagine we have 4 clients, and I connect these all 4 clients with the help of my switch like this. Sorry, like this, as you can see that. Okay, so this kind of we have a simple workgroup network. So over there, like imagine I can create like over there I create one folder, folder like my folder name is data. I have a data folder there over there. The now I want to make sure that all the clients are able to access this folder. So I simple share this folder and that's it. So all are able to access this folder. Simple. If I go for basic sharing, or if I want to share my data, I share this folder. You can share folder. I share this folder, and what happens? All the clients, all the devices, not only the clients, all the devices which is available or which is connected in this network, all those devices are able to access this data folder easily. So this is what we have, the simple workgroup network we have. Like if I want to share some resources, if I want to access some resources in the same network, so we use mostly workgroup network. It's a by default network. So once you install any Windows operating system, whether it's a client or a server, that operating system is automatically works in workgroup network. Now you're all asking me one question. So why we need domain network in that case? Because we have a network, okay, and we able to access or share the resources easily. So why we need a domain network? Okay, so domain network provides you the centralized management. Remember in the last session also we talked about about the centralized management concept. Okay, so why we need server? We need server? We use server for centralized management. So where we can use centralized management? Who provides you centralized management? Your AD services. So if I want to switch my network to the domain, so what we need, like if I want to switch my network to the domain, so in that case what we need two things. We need one dedicated server, and number second, we need ADDS, Active Directory Domain Services. I want to install the services in a particular server, and then I configure it, and then we configure a domain network, and then we need a DNS also. So we need a little bit more requirements also once you're going to install domain network. So if I need a domain network, what we need a dedicated server, we need a AD services, we need DNS services, and we need to configure all those services, and then we make a domain network. So like if I give you examples, so if you work on a large company or a big company, so every company has a domain network, as you can say. It doesn't matter whether it's a big or small. Every company has a domain network. Like if I give you example, so like google.com. Google.com is a domain. Okay, yahoo.com. Yahoo.com is a domain. And you can say that facebook.com. So these all are domain networks. Okay, and where you found these domain networks, you need to purchase those names with GoDaddy or some other websites we have. So we need to purchase this. Once you purchase this, then you configure these. It is your name. So yahoo.com is the only one in all over the world. Google.com is only one company. We do not have two Google.coms or two Yahoo.coms. So if someone already purchased Google.com, so we are not able to purchase another Google.com. Right? Every company has a unique domain name. So this is what we have, the domain name. So we need to purchase that domain name, and then we can configure in our servers. So this is what we have, the concept of domain network. So why we need domain network? Concept is that what is the benefits? Number one, as already told you in the previous, that if I need a centralized management, centralized management, okay, so what we need a domain network. Okay, if I need a centralized management, if I need security like GPO, if I need GPO, okay, if I need a dedicated database, so for that, what we need a domain network. So for domain network, where we can go, we need to install a dedicated server, and we can configure install and configure AD and DNS services. After that, that network is automatically becoming a domain network. Okay, so like if I talk about the domain network, so we have a dedicated server, and then we have a switch, and then we have the PCs, and you can install AD and DNS services, and you can configure the server. After that, your network is automatically configured as a domain network, and domain network automatically replace your workgroup network. Remember these things. As I already told you that by default your server also working as a workgroup. So once you install AD and DNS services on a particular server and you configure it, so domain network automatically replace your workgroup network, and then you have a domain network. Then there is no workgroup network is exist in a particular server where you can install AD and DNS and configure AD and DNS services. Right? So this is what we have. So this is what the concept it is. So like why so what is the basic need or what is ADS? ADS is services. So if I want to create a domain network, I need AD services. Then why we need AD services on Windows Server? For this centralized management, security, like group policies. We are able to manage our security through group policies. We have a database, centralized database for managing AD objects like user accounts, computer accounts, whatever objects you can create in the AD. So like this. This is what we have the options. So this is the answer of this question. So what is AD? It is the services. And why we need ADS on the Windows Server 22? Because of this. We need this. If you work in a workgroup network, so you're not able to go for centralized management. Right? So this is what we have the concept of AD services. Okay. Now if we'll talk about more in AD services, this is the basic concept of AD services. So now simple is that AD services provides you data stores where it keeps all the information about their AD objects. So you can write like this over there that ADS gives you, or you can say that ADS have database and it stores all the information on user identity. User identity means like all the information about user identity means user accounts, or you can say that computers, like your workstations, how many workstations you have, and some more options also is there. Groups, if you have any groups running in the running in your environment, so that information also saves in ADS database, and other things also, and services, whatever services you're running in your network, and other resources also. So this is the basic, and you can say that etc. So this is the basic information about AD. So AD is the services. It provides you database where it stores all the information about user accounts, computers, groups, services, and resources, and other things, right? So this is the basic concept of AD. Now let me open my another paint once. Okay, so now if we'll talk about the AD database or ADS concepts in the depth, in more depth, so we have a ADS database. Now these database is, as you can say that ADS structure we call about, not talk about the database, we'll talk about the ADS structure. Now how AD works, as you can say that, it's look like this. So now if we talk about the ADS structure, so this structure divides in two categories. One is logical components. And another one is physical component. Okay, so we have two types of AD structure, or you can say that we have AD structure is divided into two categories, as you can say that, logical components and physical components. So how AD works? AD works like this. AD has two components, logical and physical. Now if we talk about the logical components, we have so many components are there. Number one, we have partition. Okay, not only it's partitions, we have 4 partitions actually in AD. So we have partitions. Now we have a schema. Schema is also a component. And number third, we have domain. Domain is also a component. Okay, and we have a domain tree. It's also a component. And then we have a forest. It's also a component. And then we have a OU. The full form is organization unit. We'll talk about this also. It's also a component. And number 7, it's sites. Okay, not sites, sorry. Like this, we are till OU, we have this. Sites is the physical component, not a logical one. So if I go for the physical one, so how many physical components we have? We have 4 to 5 physical components. Number one is domain controller. Number two, we have a site or yeah, sites. Okay. Number three, we have a data store, means database, which I already told you, provided by your AD services. Second, third, fourth, we have a global catalog. Global catalog. So global catalog, it's also a component. Short form we say this GC. Short form we say is GC. And number fifth, we have a RODC. So these are the 5 components you have in the physical components. So these 5 are the physical components, and up 6 are the logical components. Partition, schema, domain, domain tree, forest, OU. These are the logical components we have. Okay. Now I'll give you the concepts of these things, that what they are. First, we'll talk about the domain. We'll start with the domain tree, and forest. Okay. We are going to discuss these three first. We are going to discuss domain tree, and forest. These three first. Okay. Now we have a major difference. Like, remember already that we already discussed about the domain network. So if we talk about the domain, like if you write over there like domain means we'll talk about domain network. We have two things: domain and domain controller. You have these two different things. These are two the different things. These two are not same. If you write domain means it represents the network. We'll talk about domain network then. And if we talk about the domain controller, it means we talk about a dedicated DC. Okay. So I explain you all these things. If I go to my previous slide, as you can see that I already told you that if I want to create a domain network, what I need a dedicated server, ADS services, and DNS services. These three things. Okay. So same thing over there is also. If we talk about domain means we'll talk about the domain network. Okay. So like this, like if I go you like this, like this is my server we have, and this is my switch, and we have a you can say that we have a PCs like this. We have a client something like this. Okay. And this is what we have, my server. I installed server 2022 in that, and this is my switch, and we have a client. Like imagine we have a client 01, then we have a client 02, and then we have a client 03, like this. Okay. And then these clients and servers are connected together like this, like this. Okay. Fine. Now we have a server 2022. Now if I want to becoming a domain, like right now, by default what happens? By default, all this server, like it's working in a work group by default. Okay. These also, these all clients are also works in a work group network by default. Okay. By default, all the server and the clients all are by default working in a work group. Okay. I'll showing you, like, see, if I minimize this one, and if I show you, this is my system. So in that I already installed, like you can see that if I go to properties over there, I have a Windows 10 Enterprise installed, and you can see that by default it works in a work group. It's a Windows 10 machine, and by default it's working in a work group network. Okay. And same in the servers also. I'll show you in the servers also. Okay. Now you can see that I start my server. This is my server, as you can see that, and you can see that, like if I go to this PC properties, and if I check over there, so as you can see that this is my server. Okay. The device specification and the operating system is server 2022. Okay. And it's working still in a work group, as you can see that. See, if I click on this system protection, and you can see that in the computer name system properties over there, you can see my server also works in a work group by default. So by default, your client and your server both are working in a work group. So like same over there. Okay. In this figure also, both are working in a work group. Now if I want to make a domain network, so what I need, okay, I need to install two things in that. So imagine I installed ADS and DNS services in this particular server, and I configure it. So I did two things in that. First I install and configure. Once I install and configure, what happens in that case? This server is automatically becoming a domain controller. Okay, this server is automatically becoming a domain controller. Once I install and configure ADS and DNS, like imagine on this I give my domain name is over there is like imagine abc.com. I give abc.com my domain name while I configuring the AD and DNS services. Okay, while I configuring the AD and DNS services, I give the domain name is abc.com, and this server is automatically becoming a domain controller. And now this server is running in the domain network. Now you find out that this work group is automatically wipe out, and on this we have it's right over there like domain, and my domain name is like abc.com, like this it shows once you configure AD and DNS services on your server. So now my domain name is abc.com. Okay, so now this server is becoming a domain controller because I installed AD and DNS services on this particular server and I configure it. So that's why this server is becoming a domain controller, and the complete network is becoming a domain network, and the domain network name is abc.com. Now you can see that your client is still remains in the work group. So what we can do, we need to simple add this clients in a domain, add this clients, all clients in a abc.com domain. Okay, so once I add this, once I did this, so what happens? These work groups also change to domain. Now these clients also not running in the work group. These clients also running in the domain, like this. It shows you like this on these clients, like this. On these clients itself also it shows you like this. So these all three clients are running in domain like this. Sorry. Like this. Or this is the way how we can do that. This is the way how we can do that. Okay, so like this what we have the domain is. The domain is a simple network. So if we talk about the domain, so domain is what? It's a logical group of network, or it's a logical grouping. You can say that it's a logical network where we can where it contains all the AD objects. Now whatever AD objects I can create, whatever user accounts and whatever you can say that computer accounts or whatever groups I am going to create, all contained by this domain abc.com. And once I create abc.com, there is a database is automatically created. AD database is automatically created in that in the particular server. Okay, so AD provides you database also, which I already told you. So once you install AD and DNS services, configure AD and DNS services, make this server as a domain controller, over there ADDS database is also created automatically, is also created automatically. Okay, it's also created, and it maintain all the AD objects in that particular database. So by default the location of the database is what? It's like C, and then after that we have a Windows. In Windows there is a folder named NTDS. In this folder you will see the database file. Database file is ntds.dit. DIT stands for directory. Okay, so this is the location. This is the database folder. This is the database folder, and this is the database file, as you can see that. Okay, so this is what we have a database folder, and this is what we have a database file. By default it saves in C drive. Database file means your operating system drive, where you install the operating system. Like imagine if I install my operating system in my server operating system in D drive, so it automatically saves in D drive. So what is a root drive, as you can say that. Okay, so it's automatically installed in the C. If you want to change the location, you can change the location as well. This is what we have the ntds and ntds.dit concepts. Okay, this is what we have, the domain. So domain represents the domain network. Now, I hope you're able to understand what is domain now and how we create the domain network. Now next we have a domain tree. Now domain tree means like I'll give you an example again. Let me open the paint again. Now we'll talk about domain tree. Now we'll talk about domain tree. Now domain tree means what? Domain tree is like, imagine that I have in India we have multiple branches. Okay, like imagine in India we have in my company, like my company has abc.com, abc.local, abc.private.limited. Okay, and my company has 3 branches in India. Like this is my site 1, we have a site 2, and we have a site 3 like this. We have 3 sites in India. Okay, so like we have a site 1, this is my site 1, and we have a site 2, and then we have a site 3 like this. And all these 3 sites connected together with a WAN link. This is my WAN link, as you can see that. This is the WAN link we have. Through that we are able to connect all these 3 sites together like this. So my company has 3 branches or 3 physical locations, as you can see that, like this. Site means physical locations. Okay, so we are like we have a different domain network is running. Like imagine over there my domain network is running, like we have a domain, like over there I'm using abc.com domain. Okay, we can call it, so it's a we can say that it's a domain network 1. Okay, over there imagine we using like we can say that site 2.abc.com. okay, this is my domain network 2, domain network 2. Okay, this is a short form of network which I show, and slash w, it's a short form of network. Okay, and then over there also we have a site 3.abc.com like this. Okay, and we have a domain network 3. So we have a multiple domain networks, in short you can say that, in different locations. So if I connect all those multiple domain networks together, so that complete concept is known as tree. As you can see that this is what we have, a India tree. Like in India we have 3 branches, okay, and they are connected with each other, so that's called, we have a India tree. Now imagine that my company grows. Okay, now we have a 2 more branches in UK. Like imagine we have a 2 more branches like this. Okay, we have 2 more branches like this. We have 2 more branches. This is again UK site 1, and we have a UK site 2. Okay, and then we have again a WAN link. Again a WAN link. We have a separate WAN link to connect these 2 branches together. So with the help of this WAN link, I connect these 2 UK branches as well, like this. Like this. Okay, now this is the separate you can say that separate UK branches we have. So these 2 UK branches connected with each other, so that's we call is known as a UK tree. This is, we have a UK tree. So we have different domain networks in UK, and we have a different domain networks in India. So in India we have 3 domain networks which is connected together. That is what we have a domain tree, India. And then in UK we have a 2 different domain networks. This is also domain network 1, and this is domain network 2, and these 2 domain networks are together in so we have, so that is a UK tree. So tree means what? If you connect 2 or more than 2 different domain networks, okay, so that concept is known as domain tree. Collection of 2 or more than 2 domain networks is known as domain tree, simple. Or you can say simple is combination of 2 or more than 2 domain trees is known as combination of two or more than two domain networks is known as domain tree, or collection of two or more than two domain network is known as domain tree. So this is what we have, a domain tree. Okay, this is what we have. Now I hope you all understand what is domain tree. Now we have to talk about the forest. Forest means the complete forest. Complete forest means like imagine if I connect these two trees together. Like what I do, I just simple connect these two trees together. I connect these two WAN links. I want that India domain networks communicate with India sites, communicate with UK sites, and UK sites also communicate with India sites. So once I connect two or more than two domain trees, that is known as a forest. Like I give you the example, google.com. Like Google is a company, or Microsoft is a company. Microsoft has multiple domain networks in every country. In India they have different domain networks. In UK they have different domain networks. US they have different domain networks. So once I connect all those countries together, all those different domain tree together, so that's complete organization is known as forest. So simple as that. Forest is a combination or collection of two or more than two domain trees. So forest represents the organization. Remember, okay. So over there, what happens? Forest, what represents? Forest represents the organization, complete organization. Domain tree represents the branches of same organization. And domain network represents the network which is running in every branch. It represents the domain network only. Domain network. Okay, it means in every branch we have a domain network. Okay, like in this picture, as you understand that. Like in site 1 we are running abc.com domain network. In site 2 we are running site2.abc.com, and site 3 we are running site3.abc.com. So we have different networks. Okay, in every site, but these three sites are connected together. All three domain networks are connected together. So this is what we have, the domain tree. And the forest is once you connect two or more than two domain trees together, means the complete organization represents the forest. Simple, like this. So I hope you understand all these things, all these three things: domain tree, and forest. Okay. Now I think you understand all this domain controller also. Domain controller means a dedicated server who maintains the AD database. A particular server, a dedicated server who maintains AD database. As you can see that in this server, AD database is automatically created, and where it's created, this is the location of AD database, which is the default one. Right? Okay. So this server maintains the AD database, as you can see that. So any server, a dedicated server who maintains the AD database, that server is that server is known as domain controller. Simple as that. Domain controller is a dedicated server who maintains AD database, who maintains the domain network, as you can see that. With the help of that domain controller, we are able to manage our complete domain network. This is what we have, the domain controller. And then we have a site. Site is a physical location. Like we are already showing you, like over there, already showing you, like this is the site. Site means the physical location, the branch. Okay, like in my company has 3 physical locations. My company established in 3 physical locations in India, or my company established in 2 physical locations in UK. The site is what? It's a physical location where my network is running. Okay, that is what we have, the sites. It's a physical location, as you can see that. Data store, we understand that data store means the database. Okay, data store means database. So as you can see that in this server, database is also automatically created, because this server is a domain controller. That's why database is automatically created. Okay, so data store means database, where we have all the information about, about AD objects. Whatever you need to do, whatever you work in the AD, all the information are stored in AD database. Okay, so this is what we have, the concept of AD. So we need to understand these things. What is AD? What are the two types of network we have? Why we need AD and why we need domain network? Number second, we understand the AD structure. We have two types of structure: logical component and physical component. In the logical component, we have these six things. In the physical component, we have five things. We understand only in logical, we understand domain tree and forest. In physical, we understand domain controller, site, and data store. Okay, and this is the picture. We understand what is domain tree, domain and forest, and all those things. So this is what we have in this session. Thank you.